All right, welcome back to Boots Come in Pairs. We want to thank John Shenning last week for joining us. A lot of fun. Talked about a lot of White Sox stuff, which is not fun for everybody else. But we enjoyed the conversation. Also, we are almost up to 24 hours of view time on YouTube, which is cool because I'm sure some of it is friends and family, but just the fact that we've spent almost a day of view time is pretty awesome. And I think we get 2 hours, so cool enough. So we're gonna start with some of the playoff stuff, but it's hard to ignore the Trevor May comments and the Oakland A's and John Fisher and about time, right? Because we followed the A's most this year. It was great that Ryan got his shot. Played with it was a bad team, but he got his chance to really show that he's an MLB player. But Trevor May really shed some light on some things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you guys can't see, I'm repping my A's tonight, my 3/4 sleeve. So for those of you who have not heard the comments, Trevor May, former relief pitcher, came up with the Twins, pitched for the Mets for a few years, and these last year and a half to 2 years, he pitched with Oakland. He decided to hang up the cleats and hang it up and retire. And he was on Twitch this afternoon, kind of engaging in a live chat with some people. And he, being retired now, he found that it was time to speak his mind about the organization and the ownership and how he feels about the different things that have been going on. And I mean, needless to say, he's not really pleased. And he prefaced all of it by saying that he loves every single person, coaches, teammates, fans in the organization, but it all kind of leads back to this one guy, and it's John Fisher, who's the owner, been partial owner since 2005, took over full ownership in 2016. During his time in ownership, the A's have been very successful at times. They've made the playoffs 7 times. They've had 85-plus win seasons 8 times. They've had a lot of good prospects come through. They've had a lot of good teams and coaches come through while he's been there. But I think all of us taking a look at it, I mean, it's not really it's not really fun for a lot of these players and these coaches when they're not being given the tools to win. And Brady, you want to expand on that a little bit?
I mean, we can see it. And I don't blame any player for not saying it mid-season, but you can feel it, you can see it, that they know what's going on there. They know they're not trying to win, and that's fine. Honestly, once you get on the field, between the white lines, you're there to compete, and you could see it every time he'd get a save. He was screaming, and it's why is this guy on a 40-win team, this excited about saves? He was probably I'm gonna nail it to this guy. And he was saying it on his Twitch stream. He's like, dude, if you don't like baseball, sell your team. You're entrusted with this organization, and you shouldn't your desire shouldn't be to move them. You should want to make it work. It's a good fan base. We've been there. It's a good. They like winning baseball. They like when teams are good. But their payroll has always been, hey, we're not going to pay for the team. Okay, well, the last 2 years have been especially bad though. $29 million payroll in 22. $33 million this year. $6 million was for Trevor May, a 34-year-old journeyman, reliever who's probably just filling out the salary cap. Honestly, Jesus Aguilar is probably the other half of that and they cut him. So what are you doing? You're not trying to win. So, and you're not building. It's not like they're built the Rays and they're building for the future. They're not even doing that. What do you? It makes no sense. I'm glad he said it.
Yeah, and getting back to what you said about the fan base, and the city of Oakland is such a historic and wonderful sports town. I mean, regardless of what can be said about Oakland as a city, I mean, we've been there. It's not the nicest in certain parts, same with San Francisco, but what can be stated is how passionate this fan base is, and they deserve to watch good baseball. They deserve to watch good football. they deserve to have their sport. The same with the Warriors. Like they deserve to watch. With as passionate as they are and as dedicated as they are, they deserve sports teams and owners that care and who invest back into them. Being in Oakland and watching a game in 2018 when they were a 97 win team, being in the Coliseum was electric. Obviously, you're not going to fill that place up because it's a football stadium, but there had to have been over 40,000 people at that game that we were at. We're sitting in the bleachers, just taking it in, all that, just incredible energy in that park. The attendance being down, I attribute to just them boycotting this ownership. It has nothing to do with not loving their team. It's what are you doing to it? Why are you gutting our pride and joy? Why are you gutting our gold and green? Like it's so unfair especially with how historic this franchise is. Like they belong in Oakland. Sure, the lights of Vegas are intriguing, but it's like, man, I just can't imagine a world where there's not a baseball team in Oakland. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, it's not really fair. And you don't, like, again, at this point in the sports world, you think like, okay, you want to move a team to Vegas, just make an expansion team. Look at the Golden Knights have been very successful. But if he thinks he's going to move this team to Vegas and then continue to spend no money, that's not going to fly. You're going to have to be relevant, competitive, and be in the playoffs because you know what? If the Vegas Golden Knights were a bad hockey team, that would be a flop right now. I know hockey draws anyways, but like people don't want to see bad teams. Everyone want to go to Vegas because it's fun, but like if you're a bad team, like that's not going to change, you know. And if you don't want to spend the money and get these free agents, it's not going to change your overall production as an organization. And it's just, again, I'm sure more players are going to have some comments for this. A lot will hold their tongue because you're playing for the guy. But thank you for saying it.
Yeah.
That we've all been kind of seeing it and thinking it. And the guy just paid you $6 million, and you go trash him. Again, if you haven't listened to it, go listen to the guy. It was a great rant, but also very true.
Yeah, and honestly, this guy, John Fisher, is worth $2.4 billion. That's with a B. Yeah. There's no excuse. And just for any of these owners and these ownership groups, it's like if you need to put the talent on the field, you need to spend the money, right. And crying poor doesn't make any sense. These franchises are worth billions of dollars. Pay your players, get the talent in, reward the fans. The fans are rewarding you by showing up to the games, by buying the concessions, by purchasing the merchandise. You get cuts of all that, and you have people paying rent. This concept, I sent Brandon, I sent you an article, or at least proposed, talking about the Rays and their expansion. Like, you got to believe that all these ballpark village concepts, like they all have tenants. They're all paying rent. It's all the revenue. Ricketts is doing all that in Chicago right now. So like crying poor and not spending money, that's no excuse. Like it's just a travesty.
And that's where you brought up Tom Ricketts right there. But like he's another guy. I think up until like 2 years ago, he was getting a little too comfortable. Because you know what? People go to Wrigley because they go to Wrigley. Like the team could be in last place and they'll go to Wrigley. But you need to hold these owners accountable for like, hey, we're not going to show up if the team is horrible, and you still need to try and win. I know the Cubs ended their curse, but Tom, it's time to go again. Like open the book again. You own all the buildings around there. You own all the ballpark stuff. Put the money back on the field. Try and build a competitive team. And I think Cub fans have kind of been holding to it because you can't just skate by anymore like you used to, like lovable losers. Like, no, let's win.
Nope. No excuses.
Yeah. But again, good open door. Thank you, Trevor May, for venting all your frustrations and not talk about it. Because he was spot on, and he just, again, you don't hear people ripping owners, but they should. And he's worth $2 billion. Actually, apparently, according to Trevor May, his parents are worth it. He didn't earn the money.
Yeah,
he's a gap baby, kind of guy. So.
Yeah, literally baby gap. Literally baby gap.
Yep. But you know what? Again, someone had to say it. I wouldn't expect anyone else to, but someone had to.
Yes, for sure.
Speaking of disappointing teams, though, we kind of predicted this before the playoff, predictions when we're, going into who's good, who's bad. Overrated teams. I said it. I can't remember who you said. I said Atlanta. I think you might have
I
said the
said I
Dodgers.
said Los Angeles. I said the
Yes.
Dodgers.
We also aren't shocked by that. But the Braves. I mean, middle of summer, if you said, "Oh, hey, you're gonna get bounced out first round," I mean, I would agree because I think they're overrated. But I mean, we kind of did see this coming, but like the Phillies were also ready for them.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, in my opinion, Atlanta kind of fell into this too because they were not hot down the stretch. They played their
Mm-hmm.
best baseball in July, and they really just kind of cooled off and fell into it. But yeah, who's they? And then their manager was like, "Oh, we're not going to blame the playoff structure. It's not the reseeding," which is true because you know what? You'd be playing the Phillies now. So like either you play them then or you play them now. You could have played them in a short series and ended it, but they didn't. So again,
Yeah.
not surprised for me.
Mm-mm. Same here, and in my predictions when we were talking about our categories were best team, most overrated team, and what was the other one? Maybe
Who's gonna
who we thought was
win?
going to win the World
Yeah.
Series. I think that was the three. So I had my best just as far as roster is concerned. I had the Braves as being my best team, but I did not have them winning the World Series. I believe John even said he might have been talking about it during our off-camera time, but like
Yeah.
looking at who the Braves are going to play, he said I had the Braves doing well, but then I saw they're playing Philly. If Philly makes it to the next round, so he's like immediately I'm like, well that's not going to work out too well. But the big thing with the Braves, we kind of said it in the beginning, is how homer dependent they were.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at their roster, at least stats for this year, they were almost set the record for home runs in a season. I believe they tied the Twins for most. It was in the 600s, I believe,
Yeah.
for the season. But looking at their roster, 8 players were either had their highest home run total ever in their career, or they were about one off their pace. I believe that Austin Riley might have hit one more home run last year than he did this year, 37 to 36. And I think there's one other guy in there that I can't think of at the moment, but pretty much
Olson.
every single guy had a career year when it comes to home runs.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're a home run dependent team, and you've run into a buzzsaw with good pitching, I mean, you're going to have to find other ways to manufacture runs, and they just
Right.
didn't figure out how to do that. They scored 7 runs in a 4-game series and hit 186. That's not good. That's not going to get it done. And then,
Or you just go through a 3-game stretch where you're not hitting homers. Like that happens.
yeah,
And when your
yeah,
offense isn't coming, because yeah, it'd be like middle of the season. It's like, oh yeah, never count them out of the game. They came back on the Cubs from a 6-run deficit one game. It's like, yeah, you can't count them out. But also, if that's all you're depending on, it's not there.
yeah.
Like it's you're not gonna hit the ball out of the stadium every time.
Yeah, and then on top of that, like the pitching just not being there. I mean,
Hmm.
they don't have guys like Texas and Philadelphia have. They don't have Wheeler and Nola and
Yeah.
Eovaldi, and Montgomery's pitching really well. They're not winning. The Braves were not going to win that 2-0 game. Strider was the only guy, the only starter who went a decent number of innings, and he didn't even have his best year as far as ERA or just being unhittable. He had a lot of strikeouts, but they just didn't have it in the starting pitching realm, and Philly did. And
Yeah.
that's ultimately, I mean, the lack of hitting and just not having strong starting pitching, it really came back to bite them.
Right. And then also, I mean, again, I love the bag on Ronald Acuna, but I don't think he's ready because he wasn't a part of that when they won last time. It
No.
was a Freddie Freeman led team. Is Ronald Acuna ready to lead a team to the World Series right now? And I would debate no, because he's very focused. I think what needs to happen is he needs to win MVP. He needs to win these individual accolades so he kind of like, okay, I've done all this, but I still haven't won the big one. Now, what is it going to take for me to get there? And this was the similarities I was seeing with Bryce Harper. What happened with him? He gets traded from Washington, and then Washington wins the World Series. How the heck does that? Like, Bryce Harper's incredible. But sometimes it's not about just being the best player on the field, because he was MVP. He was doing all this great stuff. He was hitting a lot of homers, but they didn't win the big one, and they actually, do it after him. So, like, I see him now, and it's like the way he plays especially in this postseason, he's been incredible. But the game that he has now is built to win the World Series and not these MVPs and individual awards, which is what you need.
Yeah. But I mean, in the same breath too, I mean, Freddie Freeman was the leader of the Braves before, and I mean, he obviously had the All-Star appearances, didn't have any MVP awards, just kind of a natural leader. So I think in certain respects, you either have it or you don't. And as talented as Acuna is, I just don't know if he's the guy. I think he's like it's just like in basketball, like you have your big three, or you have 3-star players, and one or two of them are really, really good, and then the third guy is kind of like the third wheel. Like you look at a team like Miami, like the Heat, you have LeBron and Wade, and then Bosch is kind of your third wheel. Like, is Bosch is a superstar by himself, but was he ever going to be the leader and win a championship? Sometimes that's who you are. You're a solid contributor. You're one of the best on the team. You might be one of the big stars in the league, but leadership is something that is not guaranteed. It's something that you kind of need to want as well. I'm not sure if he really even wants that.
I don't know. Yeah, team cohesion is also a big thing, especially with baseball. When you have 9 guys batting, you're not just relying on one pitcher unless you're the 0-1 Diamondbacks and you have Randy Johnson. Mm-hmm. But like most teams are relying
and Kurt
on,
Schilling. Don't forget Kurt Schilling.
But like it was those two, and like usually you need 3 or 4 guys to pitch. You need a closer. You need 9 guys in your lineup contributing, doing little things. But like Atlanta, they're a very talented team. We know that they have all that going for them. This is just a little thing, but you notice it. Acuna is wearing his 40-70 t-shirt, right? Like he's at the interviews, he's wearing, here's my accomplishments. What is Bryce Harper wearing? A Trey Turner shirt. He's like, yeah, that's my guy. I'm going to lift him up and he do whatever. But like you can see it when they play though. They're rooting for each other. Schwarber hits the homers. It's like, yeah, let's go. And then it's all together. And not saying they're not, but it's those little tiny details that sometimes make a big difference. You can see it with Philly right now. They're firing on all cylinders. They're playing as a unit, and every guy is impacting. Even like Marsh hit a double last night, and just the dugouts erupting, and they're going for it. But like that's what you need from the whole unit, not just a couple guys.
Yeah, we'll get to Philly. I could see the passion here. We'll get to them in a little bit. We got to talk about the Brewers too.
Yeah. Well, and that'll be my lead-in. But so obviously locally, again, Central Division, you see the Brewers, and you hear a lot about again their disappointment. It's going to start with it's Council's fault. It's this person's fault. It's the team wasn't hitting and whatever. Here's my biggest thing: the Brewers lost the divisional round back in March when they didn't sign anybody. They went into the season going, this is our team. They were trying to win the Central. They were not trying to win the World Series. And they've been doing this for like 5 years. They have a team built to beat the Cubs and the Cardinals, but they don't have a team built to beat anybody else. And they don't. They lose every time. And it's kind of funny. But like, and then they're like, oh, I don't know why we lose all the time. It's like, because this team isn't that good. Like, you were going at them earlier this year, like other Brewer fans, like, why are you guys excited about this team? They're not exciting. Again, it's a local tie, but like they love to blame Council. Not the problem. Craig Council is the best manager you've had. He takes this team way further than they should go, and he's probably on the way out. The way he's talking, he's done. But like, it's so funny to me that they essentially build their roster around beating the Central, which, you need to win your division to get there, but it doesn't take them any further.
I would take Craig Counsell in a second. Like, I would take him in a second. And I mean, you're absolutely right about that. And I've heard you say it on multiple occasions. Like, they have wasted the early to prime years of two of the best arms in the National League in Brandon Woodruff and Corbin Burns. You now lose Woodruff for the entire 2024 season, which is a big blow to them.
TJ?
I think TJ. Something with his shoulder, something with his arm. But yeah, him and then Kyle Wright for the Braves are both going to miss 2024 completely. So again, that's a stud arm, a top of the rotation arm, someone who, again, pitchers, they only have, most of them, if they're lucky, will have a 4 or 5 year stretch where they're dominant, and then they kind of have to figure things out as they get older. Do I learn a new pitch? Do I switch to more off speed as they lose their fastball? Unless you're a freak like Justin Verlander, who could continue to throw in the upper 90s at 40. But
Yeah. Well, I
yeah,
would
but just
argue
wasting it.
I would argue that prime pitchers, your shelf life is 2 years. Like before people, unless you continue to evolve like Scherzer or Verlander or some of these other freaks that can do it for longer. But other than that, I think the Brewers had 2 years where they had Corbin Burns was a Cy Young, and then Woodruff was a close second. No, Cubs couldn't hit him. No one could hit him, and they just did nothing. They didn't put any offense around him. They had Christian Yelich. They didn't help him out. They signed him to a big deal after MVPs. But like you have all this stuff going on, and you don't add to it. You had no first baseman for 4 seasons. How do you not have a first baseman? Like defensively or hitting, they had nothing. And then this year, it's like, oh, we solved it. We signed Carlos Santana, close to the deadline. It's like he's 5 years past when you should have signed him. Like he did great. I think they made good deadline decisions in terms of like the production, but too late. Like it was not a well-crafted team. But yeah, the pitching thing drives me nuts because they did have the best staff by far that could have carried them. And they'll argue like, oh, they didn't do anything in October. Well, you know what? Put something around them, give them some help, and then see where it goes. But they just didn't address it.
Yeah, and I mean, kind of going back to what we were talking about with the A's and ownership and stuff, it has nothing to do with money. These teams can spend. They have enough money to spend.
Yeah.
They're worth hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars. Like, they can go get people. But the other thing is that is Milwaukee a place where people want to be? Like, that's the other thing. I mean, Yelich there was that familiarity. I mean, he had very successful years early in his Marlins career. He became a different player. He found his power stroke until he got hurt, and he sort of rediscovered it this year. I'm a big Christian Yelich guy. I love the way he plays the game. I love how he conducts himself. He's calm, cool, and collected. I wanted him to be a Cub, like I really did, and I was kind of disappointed that the Cubs didn't go after him after when he was a free agent. But yeah, you got to help that guy out. I mean, he's a star in this league, and I think they've honestly missed their window for sure, at least for the next 5 years. And if you let Counsell go, you're just going backwards, I think.
Right. Well, the biggest one was this offseason, the Corbin Burns like arbitration thing. And he went to his arbitration hearing, which you should never do. But they're trashing the guy over like, peanuts. And it's like, give the guy an extra $1 million. Who cares at this point? And now you've essentially burned that bridge. There's no way he's coming back. Like, whenever his contract is up, he's done. He doesn't want to be here. Like, and that shows. Like, I mean, again, you're fighting over peanuts for them. And it's like, for what? Like, he's your best pitcher. And yeah, he hasn't performed in the postseason, but yet nobody has. So, like, you can't just point to him. I don't know. It's like they're a small market. Like, I get it, but like,
yeah. It's like being at a normal job like us. Like, if you go to work and you feel appreciated, like, you're going to stick around. If you're rewarded for good performance, you're going to stick around. Even if you're rewarded for just showing up, like that you feel appreciated. So you've seen guys who have been lifelong players for one team. Derek Jeter is the first one that comes to mind for me. I mean, playing in New York, it takes a special kind of person to do that. You got to be able to take the pressure of the media, of the fans, of the organization. Playing for George for however many years that he did. I mean, that's tough, but they treated him well, and he treated them well in return. I mean, that's just the way it goes. So
it's one thing if guys get poached, that's one thing. Like, okay, they're not going to give him $300 million. I get that, but you have an opportunity to extend a guy that wants to be here, and you just crap all over him, and that makes no sense.
No.
And then also part of their strategy for this year was, we're going to rely on our rookies. Monasterio, Joey Weimer, Bryce Terang. Like, where were any of those guys?
Yeah.
I don't think Monasterio even play unless he's hurt. Unless I'm just off base with that. But like, disappeared. They had to sign Donaldson, who's brutal. Yeah. Like, I mean, he's probably good third base, but like he's past his prime. He's home run or bust, hitting 112. And like, again, none of these other guys were even there, and they're like, no, we're gonna ride our rookies out. when is that ever a good strategy?
Yeah, I mean, Big Sal played pretty well for them for a little bit, and Garrett Mitchell was hurt, which kind of sucks because he's a really good player. I feel like he'll be a solid contributor to them. He's fast. He's got a good bat. He can play the outfield really well. He got hurt earlier in the season and came back later. But yeah, I mean, there's guys like Keston Hira. It's like you're hoping for big things from him, and he didn't pan out. So, like, I don't know. If you're not going to invest in the team, at least now, you got to rely on these prospects a little bit. But when they don't show up, that's the tough thing, man. I mean, you're just kind of in a spot.
Yeah, I have more sit with it. Is like, what were you expecting out of this roster? Were you expecting to get bounced in the first round? Are you okay with that? I would say probably not. We'd have to ask. Do we have a Brewers fan we can ask and have on? But
probably.
Elena's
let me think. Let me
have some words for me. I'm sure. But like,
let me think about that. We'll think about. It's just interesting to get takes from different people.
Yeah.
So I'll try to think of a Brewers fan that we can have on at some point during the off season.
I have the local perspective. We're all on the same team. We're all on anybody but the Cardinals. But at the same time, when you see teams that fail to advance that probably should have or had the aspiration to, it's like, why not? And I think it's for them. It's very clear. It's like, hey, just you're not doing enough to get to that next level, and you can't rely on certain outlets, and you really have wasted a window where you had some really good pitching, and now apparently if Woodruff's out, that's bad, and Corbin Burns doesn't want to be here anymore. So
for sure.
Well, let's move on to some good teams and some teams that are doing it right.
Yes.
The Phillies are destroying the Diamondbacks. This is an Eric Burns jersey, so this goes way back, but they're fun. Diamondbacks have been fun, but they are not in the same class as the Phillies. The Phillies have made it through the summer. They're hot now, which is important, and they have a talented roster, and Kyle Schwarber is hitting nukes. I feel like half their team was on the Cubs at one point, or the Cubs should have signed it. So it kind of hurts at that point. But, I mean, again, hit 181 in the regular season, that's fine. Hit 7 homers in the postseason, you are a hero. But they are fun to watch. My favorite guy, though, demeanor-wise, did you see the Nick Castellanos interview after they won the DS?
With Matt Weiner?
Yeah. I thought he was putting on a bit, but I'm like, I think this guy's actually serious. He just was sitting in the moment. He's like, man, this is crazy. But the one thing he said, he goes, one thing I know now, the playoffs are different than the regular season, and it shows. And that's you can see it just with that series, and then even now they're beating the Diamondbacks brains in 10-0 last night. But like they're in a class of their own right now.
Did you see his little? I mean, it wasn't really even an interview, but with Matt Weiner, where he just kind of he says that you've hit like multiple home runs 2 games in a row, and then he just says, "Where's the question?"
That's the interview I'm talking about. Yeah, he's like, do you have a question in there? Like. He goes, no, I just find that interesting. He goes, yeah,
thanks for telling me.
Yeah, thanks, yeah. Like, yeah, man, this guy's... Yeah, he's out there. But, again, I just think they're pushing all the right buttons. We'll see. I don't really know much about their bullpen. They have some good arms, but if they hold up, I mean, they have the pitching, they have the lineup, and they're clicking. Trey Turner's turning it around. I thought he was going to go in the tank because Philly's a rough crowd. But he's been phenomenal the second half, and that's when it counts.
Yeah. Aside from like the uncharacteristic like defensive miscues, like he's the only non-pitcher who's made an error for them during the postseason, which is crazy. He's got 4 errors, which is nuts. But they are just on another level right now. They have 4 guys in their lineup who have over 1,000 OPS during the playoffs: Harper, Marsh, Turner, and I believe the last one is Castellanos. The homer barrage, hitting balls in the gap, like you were saying earlier. Marsh hitting the ball in the gap, Bohm hitting a double in the gap. They just are locked in. They're slugging. They're starting pitching. I mean, Zach Wheeler threw a great game. Aaron Nola was filthy last night. He was just grooving everything. All his pitches were working, so much movement. Getting into their bullpen, I mean, you have 4+ guys who've been closers in the past, which is crazy. Like Jose Alvarado, Sir Anthony Dominguez, Craig Kimbrell, Greg Soto. Matt Stram is pitching good innings.
Yeah,
They
Soto's,
got this kid. They got this kid. Orion Kirkering, who is filthy. He's 22, throws nasty stuff. So it's like you get two like incredible arms in those two guys, and then you have to face if those guys can get through 6 innings, it's like game over because all their relievers are pitching extremely well. I mean, you even have Lorenzen in the bullpen. I mean, Ranger Suarez has been the guy who's been starting games for them in that like bullpen type game. That guy can go 4 or 5 innings too. He's got good stuff. Yeah. So my guessing is that they'll tap him for Game 3 of the NLCS, but they're just fun to watch. Your guy being Castellanos, my guy is Bryce Harper. Like Bryce Harper has gone, and I'm not sure if anybody who is watching this, if they're a fan of The Walking Dead, but I saw a comment that he's like the Negan of baseball. Negan is notorious for being the villain, and then he comes around and he's a good guy later. Bryce has been very controversial during his entire playing career. I mean, being a teenager, 17 years old, but I believe is when he was drafted, going up through the ranks, having all these high expectations, doing all the things that he needs to do, being an all-star, being rookie of the year, being MVP, not getting it done with the Nationals, signing as a free agent, big free agent contract with the Phillies, really maturing and coming into his own. If you guys get a chance to watch his Game 3 post-game interview after they beat the Braves, it is just filled with nuggets. This guy is so passionate about his team, his teammates. He's always gassing his teammates up. Brandon made a mention of that earlier, that all these Philly players are rooting for each other, and they truly are. You can just see the excitement in the dugout. It's a very tough crowd to play in front of. We personally haven't been to the bank yet. It's definitely on the bucket list in the next couple of years for us to head there and watch a game. But hearing this guy talk, how mature he is, how much fun he has, I mean, it's just incredible to watch. And I mean, the topic that keeps coming up is him responding to Orlando Arcia, apparently after Bryce got doubled up on that incredible play that Michael Harris made in Game 2. He was overheard in the clubhouse saying "Attaboy Harper," and through Harper's teammates, it got back to him. He hits 2 tanks the next game. He could be seen staring down Arcia as he's rounding the bases, and I mean, it's just he's got that swag, but he also has that respect at the same time. Just if you guys get a chance to listen to this interview, it's incredible. And the biggest thing that I was able to take from it, a couple of quotes, is that he loves Philly. He loves the fans. He signed there for a reason, and all the pressure for him is gone. He's just doing what he loves at this point. He's playing baseball, like the getting the contract to support his family, the being the number 1 pick, all the stuff. Like none of it matters anymore. He's in the moment and he's enjoying it, and he's enjoying these fans, and he's enjoying his teammates. And I really hope, we both picked the Rangers to win the whole thing. I would love for Philly to win. It'd be awesome. So many lovable guys on that team, and I can't say I dislike anybody.
No, Philly-Texas would be a great series.
Woo.
But also, same for Texas, is like they also deserve to win. But it's been a long time for them. But yeah,
I would love to see that go 7 games. I would love to see Philly, Texas, and go 7 games. Yeah. That'd be great.
Oh yeah. One guy and this kind of goes back to my point last time with like Baltimore. Like, you don't get there and then win that year. One guy who's turned around that you mentioned was Brandon Marsh. Last year in the postseason was not good. You could tell he was really nervous. You're playing in LA for the Angels, and they don't play any meaningful games. And you can move over to Philly, and it's like, oh, now I'm in the middle of a pennant race, and I'm in the World Series, and he just looked like a fish out of water. He looks so comfortable at the plate right now. He looks like he's part of the team, that he's actually doing it. But again, last year, just first time you're in that situation, you're just not going to do as well. I mean, he's doing immaculate compared to like wild card. He didn't have anything, but 417 and the DS hitting 333 for the NLCS. I mean, just the strikeouts are down. He's just on base more. He's more into the games. I mean, that's what I'm talking about with like the experience. You need to have multiple years of it most of the time. Sometimes you catch lightning in a bottle. Jacoby Ellsbury was a rookie. You're in the playoffs, but like. That doesn't happen all the time where you get these rookies that are contributing. But I think the second time around has been a lot more kind to Brandon Marsh.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm glad that you brought Marsh up. And he's not some scrub, which, I mean, a lot of people don't know Brandon Marsh, but like Brandon Marsh is a former top prospect. I got to see him play in single A with the Angels. Him and Joe Adell were in the same outfield. And I could see back then, like Joe Adell was obviously the prize. I mean, people were there to watch him, but I'm seeing this guy like fly around the outfield, smoking shots in the gap. I'm like, who is this guy? And I got to know Brandon Marsh as a player, and yeah, he's just incredibly talented. He's a plus defender. He's got speed. He's got gap to gap pop. I mean, it's awesome to see him putting it together. And I think that's the nice thing about having guys like Trey Turner and Bryce Harper and Nick Castellanos and Kyle Schwarber. All of these guys have played in big moments during their career. They can kind of lead these younger guys along. Like Brandon Marsh isn't like he's still young, but he's not like 21 years old anymore. No, but he's never played in an environment like this as far as Major League Baseball is concerned. So it's probably. The pressure is pressure that he's putting on himself, but I think you're able to play more freely when you have those guys in your lineup. Like seeing him and like Bryson Stott and Alec Boehm, all those younger guys, like, yeah, they got a taste of it last year, but like now you're in it again and you kind of have that more comfortable feeling and stuff. But yeah, great to see Marsh playing well for sure. And even, I mean, another guy that no one's really talking about is JT Realmuto as well.
Oh,
like that guy's got 10 RBIs in the postseason. Like people are so focused on Harper and Castellanos and Schwarber coming up big in the NLCS that like Realmuto's playing really, really good baseball, and he's anchoring that pitching staff too. Yeah. He's really receiving the ball well and giving them confidence.
He has a lot of big hits. He's not hitting the homers, he's not doing that, but like he's a great catcher and he's hitting really well. And just you can't. The pitching staff in itself, like again, Martin Maldonado is on the Astros still for his catching only. If he gets a hit, and he got a hit tonight, good for you.
Yeah.
But if he gets a hit, it's like that's a bonus. But like you can that changes an entire series. They've won a World Series with Martin Maldonado behind the dish, so it's that's so important, and he's doing that. But he's also offensively a big contributor in that lineup as well.
Yeah, and that the veteran presence just rings through that lineup in all facets. They're a dangerous team, and I'm hoping that they can just close it out. And these next couple games, I'm sure we'll see a bullpen type game for the next game, and then probably right back to Wheeler.
The bullpen game. I don't get the bullpen game.
I mean, Suarez, Ranger. I guarantee, like Ranger Suarez is going to be the guy who starts that game. I mean, if he can normally, I mean, he's been a starter. He's started games. He's gone starter innings in the past. Right. I guess it will really all be what Thompson wants to do. But, I mean, I think they'll go right back to Wheeler in Game 4 if they can take Game 3.
Yeah. And nothing against, the Diamondbacks, they've had a really good run. I think they've over-exceeded expectations. They have a really good young team. Corbin Carroll's amazing, but I don't think they stand much more with the Phillies. The Phillies are just too good. They're smoking hot, and they're just kind of too much for them. But
yeah, I mean, the other thing is I think their Game 3 starter is going to be Brandon Pfaadt. Again, he really pitched well at the end of the year, and he's pitched pretty well in the playoffs. He's more of like a cutter, slider type pitcher. Maybe he can find lightning in a bottle and stymie this Phillies offense, but it would be really, really hard to imagine him being able to do that, especially as a younger player in the league. We'll see. I mean, crazy things have happened.
One thing I will say, though, for Arizona is you have a really good manager there. Because, like, Zach Gallen, he's pitched well in the postseason, but he's had rough first couple innings. And like even the other night when he goes, almost 6 innings, pitching how he pitched, he let up a lot of runs, but like he let up a lot early and then gutted through that. And you need to allow that sometimes. I think so often you see the Kevin Cash syndrome where it's like, my guy let up a run, I got to go get him. It's like, no, let him settle in. I think in the last round, when they beat LA put up a 2-spot in the first inning on him. But he it's like, all right, I'm in my groove now. And then he was unhittable for the next 4 or 5 innings. So like sometimes you do need to let your starters go. I think he's managed this team to the best of their ability. They've overachieved. But like, yeah, letting your pitchers sometimes pitch, especially in the postseason, is important because then you start burning out your bullpen, right? You Joe Madden thing, and Aroldis Chapman's pitched 9 days in a row, and he's throwing, instead of 100 miles an hour, he's throwing 86 because he's got nothing in his arm anymore. But which also incredible, Aroldis Chapman still throws 100 miles an hour. That blows my mind.
He does. But it's crazy.
But a lot of these guys, you see that happen where they burn out their bullpen because, oh my gosh, my starter let up a run. I got to go get him out of there. It's like, no, let him go. Again, Zach Gallen had a bad outing the other night, but he got through the innings. He let up 5 runs, but like he pitched well enough to move the game along. They just couldn't catch up.
I believe Torey Luvello, I believe, was a Red Sox coach, was he not?
I'm not
Something
sure
tells me that
where he comes
from.
But
I need to look that up.
Yeah, but I think they've well over exceeded expectations. I think they have something to build on for the future. And the way he's managed his postseason, you see it again. We'll get to Counsell again with that, but like Counsell loves to go to his bullpen as soon as possible. And the more arms you put in the game, the more you got to be successful with all of them to win the game. And it's like, you want it less opportunity for hiccups, essentially.
Yeah, Torey Luvello. Let's see. You know what? He was not. I don't think he coached for the Reds.
It's probably hard to.
You know what? He did coach AAA for the Paw Sox.
Okay. Well,
I don't know. Like I'm a really big fan of Torey Luvello. He's a hard-nosed guy. He's a passionate guy.
Yeah.
I mean, letting your starter gut out innings like that, it's very reminiscent to me of like Tito doing the same thing with Wake. I mean, when Wakefield needed him to go in, they needed him to gut out some innings. They're getting beat during the regular season. It's like, hey, we have a big stretch coming up. We really need to save our bullpen. Wake, what can you do for me? Like, I feel like that hard-nosed managing, like just being able to get that out of your guys is really important. And it's cool that he's gotten this shot with the Diamondbacks. He's got a lot of awesome young talent coming up and also at the big league level right now. To me, like I knew about the Diamondbacks. Like I knew some of their players. Obviously, Corbin Carroll's a top prospect, and you hear about him and what he's doing over there. But like, I don't know, the future is seeing them in person in their place. That fan base is pretty passionate as well. It was cool being in that environment. Like lots of big sports in that area. But yeah, it's cool. It sucks. I mean, eventually, like you have to get there. Like the NLCS is the pennant. Like that's the step before the World Series. So obviously, you have to play somebody. You're gonna end up playing another as a fan, another team that you like. So I mean, they had to play each other eventually. Like in an ideal world, both of them would win, but because they're both fun to watch. But to me, Philly's just got a little bit more.
Yeah. I think that just the clock's kind of finally like striking midnight on them because it's just you can see the talent gap and they're just not quite there. But,
no, they haven't had quite that big off season like Philly. I mean, Philly's got a lot of high dollar players.
I mean, again, the fact they beat the Dodgers is really cool because it's like you got $400 million versus I don't know whether those are payable probably under 90 this year. They weren't probably. I mean, they probably had a good enough team to get somewhere because Gallen and Merrill Kelly are good, and that gets you this far. So
yeah, but hey, we called that one too.
Yeah. we're just, again, put your money on our predictions because we won't, but you can, right?
Yeah. Go to Vegas and bet it all on black.
Yeah.
Peeps.
Right. Well, the other series going on is Texas and the Texas series, Houston and Texas. I don't know. Let's check the score right now. It's 5-0 Houston now.
Yep.
I was kind of hoping Texas would sweep them away but not going to happen probably tonight. Scherzer didn't pitch amazing, which you know what you're going to get from him, but that's also going to be an entertaining series. I didn't think it was going to be a sweep. I didn't think it was going to be a short series. It's probably going to go at least 6. A lot of talent there too, but Houston's been there and done that.
Yeah. They did it last year. They won last year. So they're no stranger to these big moments. They've won the American League several times over the past several years. They're there every single year. If they're not winning, they're in the dance. They've
been in the ALCS the last 7 years.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
That is just crazy considering where they were before this run happened. And I mean, that is just a testament to scouting and development and signing the right guys. I mean, homegrown talent, you have Altuve, Yordan Alvarez as international free agents. You have Alex Bregman and Kyle Tucker as guys who were drafted and brought up through the organization, high first-round picks who have panned out and done really well. You just got other just outstanding players. They are making the right calls. I mean, not to say that like letting Carlos Correa go was a smart decision, but Jeremy Pena is really good. Jeremy Pena is a platinum. I think he won the platinum glove at shortstop last year. He hits when it matters. He was the World Series MVP last year. I mean, they have the arms. They got Verlander back, and he has been incredible. Again, just defies everything that we know when it comes to the human body and how you can stay at the top of your game being an elder statesman in the league. Just goes out there and dominates. It's just incredible.
You know what else Jeremy Pena is? He's healthy. Jeremy Pena is healthy. Carlos Correa is not. So that in itself, and this is what you thought the Cubs would be. When they have this young core and they're building it up. I think the Cubs went to 3 straight NLCSs, but
they did.
To go to 7 and you're still knocking on the door, and it's not like, because the Cubs got swept out of a couple of those. Like, they the other 2 they were kind of like, okay, we're just happy to be here, but like, and then they won the one in the middle, but like Houston's doing it, and every year you're like, man, they might, they're there, they might as well win it, but like. This is what you wanted for the Cubs, and they've kind of taken a segue, which is disappointing. But this is a completely different roster, too. This isn't like, oh, this is just the same team we're running out there. Like, this is not the banging on the trash can team. This is, a completely different roster with Altuve still, and Bregman.
Yes.
But, like, everything else is different, and they just keep winning. They keep getting there, and so we'll see if they crawl back into Texas. But it seems like they're going to win tonight, so certainly they're right there in the series.
And I think the thing that they have that the Cubs didn't have, aside from more consistency out of these star players, is the starting pitching that's just been dominant. And like, nothing against, like, John Lester is one of the best postseason pitchers to ever play, not just in this decade or two, like ever. But having a guys like Justin Verlander and Garrett Cole was pitched for them for several years. They've had a lot of big arms and their starting staff, and I mean that complements your offense. Right. So, I mean, getting Verlander back, I think, was the key that was the thing that put them over the edge, because like you got guys like Framber Valdez and Christian Javier, and you have all those guys who are, again, wonderful pitchers, but like Verlander's just got that stuff, man. He's built differently than other people. He's built different, as the kids say, but yeah, he's just incredible. And yeah,
Well, I think what you're saying too is, yeah, they're not just relying on the same pitchers every year to get it done. It's different guys, different
yeah,
names. They're going out and getting the next whatever. So like again, I think not signing Garrett Cole at the time was good. And the Yankees signed him for a big contract, and he's done well. But you know what? Maybe they didn't need him anymore. Verlander they let walk, and now hey, he's still doing it. Okay, let's bring him back. They're not
yeah. They're
afraid
in a
to
they're in a
win.
position to win, and they traded for him, and they gave up. Uh, shoot, I think they gave up. I don't even remember who they gave up to get him, but I think they gave up their top. I think they gave up Acuna's brother to get,
Sure.
or the Mets. The Mets got the Rangers gave up Acuna's brother to get Scherzer. That's what that was.
Yeah.
I'm not
So
sure who they gave up to, or who the Astros gave up to get Verlander, but yeah,
right.
I mean,
When you're a team like Houston,
have,
it doesn't matter. Okay, great. They'll buy someone else next year, or they'll develop someone else. They've shown the ability to do that. So,
yeah,
but, yeah. All right.
yeah,
Well, yeah, and we'll
cool,
see. I guess we'll see.
exciting.
Yeah, we'll see where the week goes, and whether we're talking about the World Series next week or some more championship series action.
Yeah, for sure, definitely good stuff, and yeah, it's fun when playoff baseball's fun. Like all four teams are fun to watch, dynamic, have great fan bases, have great representatives of the game. It's just cool stuff. It's fun to talk about. Yeah, this has been awesome. Thank you to everyone who's been, like Brandon mentioned earlier, the hours on YouTube. Thank you for subscribing and watching that. We're starting to get some impressions and streams and subscribers on Spotify. Thank you for that. That's going to be, I think, a pretty cool platform for us. Just again, just out of the ease of listening, like people driving and being able to listen or tune in. If there is anything that anyone wants to talk about, like we'd love any comments or suggestions of topics. I mean, we have a bank of stuff that we want to talk about, but always open to get different points of view. Um, Always interested in having guests on the show as well. We have a few lined up, some friends, some past friends who are in baseball, whether it's those who have played or those who are in organizations that we want to have on just to get their take on their role and what they do. Really excited. But then the other part is just getting people who are fans of the game. It was great having John on to talk about the White Sox, but if you have a fan of a team that you're passionate about, we'd love to talk to you as well. Just again, biggest thing is just talking about baseball and having fun doing it. That's what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, especially rival teams. We really like those ones because then we can
Yeah.
bag on the team and not the person. But we know a few on the other side of town, but that's fine. But yeah, it's been fun so far. We look forward to doing it some more.
Absolutely.
So again, yeah, boots come in pairs again. We'll see you guys next time.
Peace, guys.